The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's Memorial Hospital had witnessed countless stories, but none quite like the one unfolding in room 847. Behind that heavy door lay Marcus Rothwell, a name that commanded boardrooms and made stock markets tremble. Yet here, stripped of his tailored suits and corporate armor, he was just another patient. Though the nursing staff would argue he was far worse than most. Margaret Chen had been a nurse for 23 years, and she'd never met anyone quite like him. He threw a water pitcher at Jenkins yesterday, she whispered to her colleague. During shift change, exhaustion evident in every word. Called him incompetent because the IV alarm went off. It's been 3 weeks, and we've cycled through every available nurse on this floor. The man in room 847 wasn't dying, at least not in any immediate sense. A severe stroke had left his right side partially paralyzed. His speech slurred and his legendary self-sufficiency shattered. The doctor said he'd recover most of his function with proper therapy and care. But Marcus Rothwell seemed determined to alienate everyone trying to help him. "I don't need your pity," he'd snarl at anyone who entered. When physical therapists came, he refused to cooperate. When nurses tried to help him eat, he'd knock the tray away with his good hand. The hospital administrator had fielded 3 formal complaints from staff members in 1 week alone. Nobody knew what to do with Marcus Rothwell. His wealth meant the hospital couldn't simply discharge him. He was paying for private care at rates that funded entire departments. But his behavior was creating an impossible situation. Nurses requested reassignments. Therapists documented his noncompliance. Even Dr. Patterson, who'd treated everyone from homeless patients to celebrities with equal compassion, found himself dreading the daily rounds to room 847. That's when Rosa Delgado arrived. She hadn't meant to become part of this story. Rosa worked in the hospital's environmental services department, a fancy term for the cleaning crew. For 7 years, she'd mopped floors, emptied trash bins, and sanitized rooms, largely invisible to the medical staff rushing past her. At 52, she supported her daughter and 2 grandchildren on wages that barely covered rent in their small apartment across town. Rosa had learned English late in life, and she spoke it with a thick accent. That made some people assume she couldn't understand them. But Rosa understood plenty. She understood hard work, sacrifice, and the quiet dignity of doing a job well, even when nobody noticed. She'd seen Marcus Rothwell's room from the doorway during his first week, catching glimpses of the man who shouted at everyone. She'd heard the nurses complaining in break rooms, seen them nearly in tears after particularly brutal encounters, and she'd noticed something else, something nobody else seemed to see. On a Tuesday morning, Rosa was assigned to clean room 847. She knocked gently before entering, her cleaning cart announcing her arrival with a soft squeak. Marcus was slumped in the hospital bed, staring out the window at nothing. He didn't acknowledge her presence. "Good morning, Mr. Rothwell," Rosa said quietly, beginning to empty the trash. "Just do your job and get out," he muttered, not turning his head. Rosa nodded and continued working. She moved efficiently through the room, wiping surfaces, changing the trash liner, checking that supplies were stocked. As she worked near his bedside table, she noticed the photographs, barely visible. Beneath scattered papers and medication bottles. A younger Marcus with a beautiful woman, both smiling. The same woman older standing in a garden. "Your wife?" Rosa asked gently. Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's none of your business." "She's very beautiful," Rosa continued, carefully straightening the frame. "You can see love in her eyes when she looks at you." "I said it's none of your business." His voice cracked, and for just a moment, Rosa saw it, the grief beneath the anger, the devastating loneliness of a man who'd lost everything that mattered. She finished cleaning in silence and left. But she came back the next day, and the day after that. Each morning, Rosa knocked gently and entered with her cart. Each morning, Marcus would grunt or ignore her, but Rosa began doing something different. She'd talk, not to him exactly, but just talk while she worked. She told him about her grandchildren, how 7-year-old Miguel was learning to read and would practice on cereal boxes at breakfast. She mentioned how her daughter was studying at community college while working full-time, trying to build a better life. She shared small observations about the changing autumn leaves visible from the hospital windows, Or how the coffee in the cafeteria was terrible, but the oatmeal cookies were surprisingly good. Marcus never responded, but Rosa noticed he'd turned his head slightly toward her voice. He'd stopped telling her to shut up. On the 8th day, as Rosa was leaving, Marcus spoke. "Evelyn," he said quietly. Rosa turned back. "Sir? My wife in the photo. Her name was Evelyn." His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it for anything kind in years. "She died 2 years ago, cancer." Rosa set down her cleaning supplies and moved closer, not touching, just present. "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Rothwell. Everything I built, everything I did, it was supposed to be for us, for our future. Then she got sick, and none of it mattered. All the money, all the power, it couldn't save her." His eyes filled with tears he'd apparently been holding back for months. "And now I can't even feed myself. I'm useless. Completely useless." Rosa pulled up the chair beside his bed, something no one had dared to do. "You're not useless, Mr. Rothwell. You're hurt and scared and grieving. That's very different." "I've been horrible to everyone," he whispered. "The nurses, the doctors, everyone trying to help. I don't know why. I can't stand being helpless. Evelyn was helpless at the end, and I couldn't fix it. And now I am too." "Being helpless isn't the same as being worthless," Rosa said softly. "My husband died when my daughter was young. Construction accident. For months I couldn't get out of bed. I was angry at everyone, at God, at the world, at people who tried to help." "I understand." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Marcus asked, "How did you get through it?" "I let people help me," Rosa said simply. "It was the hardest thing I ever did. Harder than any job, any sacrifice. But I learned that accepting help isn't weakness. It's courage." Something shifted in Marcus that day. When the physical therapist arrived that afternoon, he didn't refuse. His movements were grudging, uncertain, but he tried. The next morning, when Nurse Margaret came in, he said, "I'm sorry. For the water pitcher. For everything." Margaret nearly dropped her medication tray in shock. Rosa continued her morning visits, and slowly Marcus began to change. He started asking about her family, actually listening to the answers. He worked with his therapists, pushing through frustration and pain. He apologized to staff members he'd mistreated, some of whom cautiously began to warm to him. 6 weeks later, Marcus was ready for discharge. He'd regained significant mobility and independence. His speech was clearer. The man preparing to leave was different from the one who'd arrived, softer somehow, more human. On his last morning, Rosa came to clean his room one final time. Marcus was dressed in regular clothes, waiting for his driver. "Rosa," he said, standing carefully with his cane, "I need to tell you something. I own a small scholarship foundation. Evelyn started it years ago. I haven't touched it since she died, but I'm going to fund it again, properly this time. And I want your daughter to be the first recipient." Rosa's eyes widened. "Mr. Rothwell, I couldn't—" "Please," he interrupted gently. "Let me help you. You taught me that accepting help is courage, remember? Well, so is giving it. You gave me back my life, Rosa. You saw a person when everyone else saw a problem. You showed me that wealth isn't in bank accounts. It's in how we treat each other, especially when it's difficult." Tears rolled down Rosa's cheeks as she nodded. "Thank you." Marcus smiled, a real smile that transformed his whole face. "No, Rosa, thank you. You performed a miracle without even knowing it. You reminded me that kindness, real kindness, is the only thing that truly heals." As he walked toward the elevator, leaning on his cane but standing tall, nurses paused to watch. They whispered to each other about the transformation, the impossible change in room 847's difficult patient. But Rosa knew the truth as she pushed her cleaning cart down the hallway. There had been no miracle, not really. Just two broken people who'd found the courage to be human with each other. Sometimes that's all any miracle really is.